Ask the team doctor or ask the locker room. When professional athletes want straight answers about cannabis, a new study says most of them skip the doctor. Here is the part that should sting. The NFL helped pay for that study. 10 elite athletes across 5 leagues told researchers the same thing. And the study's bottom line reads like a warning addressed to the leagues themselves. Drop the stigma and start telling athletes the truth. Start with what this study is. Researchers at 2 Canadian universities sat down with 10 current and former elite contact sport athletes, pro football, pro basketball, pro hockey, top level college sports. The funding came in part from the Joint Pain Management Committee, run by the NFL and the Players Union, and the results ran this month in the journal Sports Health. The league's own money went out to ask a hard question. What are athletes actually doing with cannabis, and what do they need to do it safely? The answers were specific. Pain management ranked ahead of prescription painkillers. One player called it far better than any painkiller they had tried over the long term. Sleep, where one athlete said it worked better than the Tylenol with codeine they had been taking. Recovery through concussions. And several said they moved to cannabis after alcohol tore up their health in college. Deliberate choices about pain, sleep, and injury. Made almost every time without a single professional to talk to. And the rule books have been moving for years. 2020. The NFL's collective bargaining agreement ends suspensions for positive marijuana tests. 2023. The NBA strikes cannabis from its banned substances list entirely and lets players invest in cannabis companies. 2024. The NCAA drops it for Division I athletes and the NFL cuts fines while raising the THC threshold. This year, the WNBA takes it off the prohibited list too. On paper, the era of the league drug test catching weed is ending. Underneath those headlines, the study found the fear never left. Athletes still expect judgment from teammates, from their organizations, and from the public. They described hotel rooms and locker rooms as places where you stay quiet. They still worry about discipline and about the public relations hit if a story breaks in a state where marijuana remains a crime. The written rules moved. The culture inside the building is still catching up. The comparison that came up over and over was alcohol. Heavy drinking is common in pro sports, and it gets a pass. Cannabis got tested for like a performance enhancing drug. Athletes asked the obvious question if cannabis use deserves a sanction, why doesn't heavy drinking? The study's authors say the mismatch does real damage. In their words, normalizing alcohol while stigmatizing cannabis creates confusion and erodes trust. When teams did offer cannabis education, athletes had one word for it one sided, all the scary parts, with the reasons for the rules never explained. So, where does an athlete learn about the thing they are already using? Peers, the internet, trial and error on their own bodies. The study calls that a knowledge gap with consequences. It pushes athletes toward unregulated products, and it means real therapeutic options get overlooked right alongside real risks. For a workforce whose bodies are the entire business, the medical staff standing closest to them has been benched on this one subject. So athletes went out and found their own answers. Now the lawyer's warning, because a league rulebook is only one layer of law. UFC pulled marijuana from its banned list in late 2023. Within months, it was warning its own fighters that California's State Athletic Commission could still fine anyone testing over 150 nanograms of THC. League policy said clear. A state regulator said fine. And remember Sha'Carri Richardson. A positive THC test cost her the 2021 Olympics under world anti-doping rules after she used cannabis while grieving her mother. 3 layers. The league, the regulator, and the criminal law of whatever state you are standing in. Only one of them changed. The researchers closed with 5 fixes aimed straight at the leagues. Cannabis education built for athletes and for sports medicine staff. Policies harmonized across leagues and grounded in evidence, with the reasoning explained. Open, non judgmental conversations between athletes and team doctors. A deliberate effort to cut the stigma, and league money behind more research on what cannabis does to performance, recovery, and long term health. The NFL has already started writing those checks. $1 million in grants back in 2022, studying cannabis for pain and for protecting players' brains after concussions. So here is what to take from this one. If you are an athlete at any level, The policy you read about in a headline is the thinnest layer of your legal exposure. Before you rely on it, check three things: your league's current rule, your employer's or your commission's rule, and the criminal law of every state you play in and travel through. They do not match, and the gap between them is where careers get damaged. That check takes an afternoon with a lawyer who reads these policies for a living. It is cheaper than a suspension. And watch the leagues. The real test of this study is whether the league that paid for it turns honest education into actual policy. If you want to see what happens when an organization's own research tells it the problem is the organization, hit like and subscribe. What the NFL does next tells you who the policy was really protecting.